Leo, welcome to your January 2020 Astro Update. It's Raina here. January is a month where the sign of Capricorn is front and center, not only with the transits that are occurring at the moment, and actually, now that I think about it, we're coming off of a solar eclipse in Capricorn, and this is your sixth house of work. And so you might be quite busy with work. And Mercury is also in Capricorn. But what I was really thinking about is the fact that we also have these longer range transits like Pluto in Capricorn in the sixth house, Saturn, the south node. So it's a pretty crowded house for you. And this means that, oh, and Jupiter. How could I forget? I keep talking about these other planets, but Jupiter's there too. And of course, this is going to be most exact if you're looking at your degree of sun or rising and seeing, what your sixth house cusp is, to be able to tell, and also your seventh house cusp to see, how that plays out in terms of some of these transits. But this is more of a general forecast. And that's like down to brass tacks kind of mentality and behavior. And so I actually think that's a wonderful way to start the year, Leo, because it's so like organized, or into organizing your life and creating these schedules, very Virgo-esque. And so I mean, it's funny because you could say, well, would a Leo person, if Leo rules the fifth house of pleasure, do they want to get down to brass tacks? Well, yeah, you're known for being a workaholic, so this should be right up your alley. And on the 3rd of the month, Mars goes into a fellow fire sign, and this is Sagittarius. And what's even nicer about that is it's going into your the house that you rule, the fifth house. So Mars in the fifth house. Well, let me just get this one out of the way. The fifth house can be recreational sex, and Mars can be your sex drive. So I'm gonna let you do the math on that one. I'm not going to talk about that. But the fifth house, because the fifth house is a house of pleasure, but it's also the house of conceiving children. Of course, that can be a quite pleasurable endeavor too. So just realize that if you're very active, Mars is very active in your ahem, nudge, nudge, wink, wink pleasure, that could result in a child. So be sure that you are wearing your raincoat, or actually a woman doesn't wear a raincoat, does she? And just things like that. The fifth house can be sports. So, and competition, games, sports obviously is competition, but any kind of like, games and stuff like that. So you may be entering some kind of competition. It's the house of creativity. So this could be you more active, more motivated to create your art. You could be just actively dating. Love, if you have fallen in love, that you're just really seeing this person a lot. It's the earlier stages of love, so it's, you're dating a lot and things like that. Even if it's one person, you're just seeing them a lot. On the 10th, we have a lunar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. Cancer is your 12th house. A lunar eclipse is a powerful full moon. This is a water house, so like just in terms of a general full moon, there can be a lot of psychic activity, downloads, or even you having vivid dreams, and that, I guess you could say dreams could create the portal for downloads and stuff like that. But psychic revelations, the 12th house can be addictions and other self-defeating patterns. So when you have a lunar eclipse here, and it's also the house of karmic situations. So when you have a lunar eclipse here, Leo, you may find that it's easy to break a bad habit where it just kind of leaves you. And people, it's very interesting because some people do have the experience of having a really bad habit that they feel like they can't break. And then all of a sudden, they're able to break it because they just, I was just reading somebody say that, and I was like, how can you do that? And I think it was something like drinking, where this person was like an alcoholic. I think they were discussing AA, and it was online. And they said that they were just, drinking habitually, and then one day they went and they tried to drink, and it just tasted like poison to them. Well, how often does that happen? So this, could be the perfect, opportunity to break like a habit that has been particularly difficult. Again, because you rule the house of pleasure, it can make a Leo person sometimes a hedonist, where you're just actively seeking out pleasure wherever you find it. And not to say, oh, that's what an evil person who would do such a thing, but it can have its definite drawbacks where you're seeking pleasure with something that is harmful to you. And yes, you do want to kind of get rid of it from your life. That would be a good thing. But this can, because it's a lunar eclipse and lunar eclipses can take things away. It can take away the craving. It can take away the desire. And it's like you really had little to do with it. It was just kind of happening. This can also just be insight, emotional insight into the ways that you self-sabotage. On the same day, Uranus goes direct at 2 degrees of Taurus. Again, this is on January 10th. And Taurus is a fixed sign. Taurus is your 10th house of career. So that's very interesting. This 2-degree mark was the same degree that Taurus was in during the solar eclipse. That just so happened to affect your work sector. So definitely at that time of the solar eclipse in Capricorn, this affected your career and your work. And there may have been some kind of a lucky break that you received because Jupiter was in conjunction with the solar eclipse. And now we have Uranus direct here. Uranus in the 10th house can have, many different possibilities. Let's say a Leo person is in show business, not the most bizarre possibility. And you may be toiling away for years, and then all of a sudden you get some kind of I was almost going to say like a viral video, but I was thinking, well, how could a person in show business, what does that have to do with videos? Well, yeah, nowadays it does. Let's say you're a singer and you decide to self-publish your own song, and it really captures a lot of interest, and you get a record deal from it. Something like that, where you're taking your own creation and you're putting it out there. And unexpectedly it hits with the public. The 10th house can be your reputation. And Uranus is also about electronics, and so the internet can be a part of that as well. And I also think that in the next 7 years, some Leos are going to radically shift their career focus. You may, at the end of the 7 years, you may look back and say, wow, I went from working in a bank to owning my own business, doing something like radically different. Uranus is a radical influence and it's in your career sector. On the 13th, Venus goes into Pisces. So Venus has been in your opposite sign of Aquarius for half of the month and actually coming in from December. Venus in that eighth house, I'm sorry, in that seventh house, can be a situation of enhancing a committed relationship. Perhaps for some of you, you were taking a breather from a marriage or other type of committed relationship and dating, maybe kind of feeling like you wanted to see what else is out there, and you decide that to appreciate what you already have. Sometimes maybe you had to spice up your sex life, and maybe Mars in the fifth was being more fun, because this is the fun house. So perhaps you had gotten in a rut with your partner and you had to just be more sexy in a very spontaneous, playful way. This can also be receiving money from a lawsuit, a legal matter, I should say, whatever that is. On the 16th, Mercury goes into Aquarius. And so now we're going to start seeing, let me just say, I kind of skipped over. I was talking about Venus in Aquarius, but I didn't say what happens when Venus gets into Pisces. On the 13th, Venus goes into Pisces, which is your eighth house, and that's shared resources. So Venus in the eighth could have a monetary gain, but it could be, again, if there is some kind of a legal matter that goes in your favor, where, let's say you did get divorced, you are receiving some kind of financial amount that was stipulated in the divorce. Venus in the eighth can sometimes be something with an inheritance issue or something like that, and because it's money that is not necessarily what you earn yourself. On the 16th, Mercury goes into Aquarius, into that opposite house, the seventh house, and so you're talking more to a partner. Maybe this is all about rehabilitating a committed partnership and doing certain things that had fallen by the wayside. Maybe you had kind of stopped communicating properly. On the 20th, the sun goes into that house again. And also, by the way, Mercury can be contracts in the seventh house legal. So you may be signing just some kind of an agreement or whatever, something along those lines. And then the sun goes into that seventh house on the 20th, and maybe you're just putting a lot of attention on your significant other because you want to make this work. On the 24th, you have a new moon here. So again, by the way, I should have mentioned that between, I guess it was about 2016 to 2018, you did have eclipses in these houses, your house of the self and the relationship sector. So there may have been some, eclipses don't mean that all marriages and related relationships will end, even if a lunar eclipse falls there. But it could certainly alter it or weaken it if other factors are cooperating. And maybe you're just restoring things at this point. But it definitely looks like there is an emphasis on your work life as well as your partnership sector. Okay, that's what I have for you, Leo. I hope that you enjoyed this. And if you'd like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.